Hey everyone, Mike Mulligan here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am a certified orientation and mobility specialist, and today I will be demonstrating how to locate corners when using a white cane. Let's do this. Alright, so before I start my demonstration here, I just want to mention that this video is really meant to be a review of some of the different techniques for locating corners when using a white cane. This is not meant to replace meeting with an orientation mobility specialist. These techniques are really important for safety because if you don't locate a corner, there's a chance you might end up walking out into a street, which can definitely be a big safety issue. So please, if you can, meet with an orientation mobility specialist to go over these skills until you really become comfortable with them. And this is really just meant to be a review of some of the skills you have learned with a specialist. So let's do this. So being able to safely detect and locate street corners is a really important, actually a critical skill if someone wants to become a good independent traveler. Because if you're unable to locate corners, that's going to be a challenge in knowing when to cross streets, where to cross streets, as well as when to turn if you're going to be turning. So locating corners is an important skill, and I definitely recommend spending some time to really develop this until it becomes second nature for you. So there's many different factors and considerations involved when locating street corners when using a white cane. And today I'm going to give you a quick demonstration of several different corners and some of those factors, or as I like to call it, cues, some of the cues that tell me that I have arrived at that street corner. And I just want to say that this is just kind of an overview. There are so many different types of corners out there, but I'm going to focus on some of the main factors or cues that can be really helpful in knowing that you have arrived safely at a street corner. And that's really going to be the focus of my demonstration, is knowing that you have arrived at the street corner. All right, so I'm going to start my demonstration here with a kind of an older style corner. So this corner, it does not blend into the street like a lot of the newer corners that are out there, but there's still a lot of these around, and it's important to know when you've come to one of these corners. And the way I like to teach this is to use the cane and the tactile feedback you get when the cane tip drops off the side of the curb or the edge of the curb. So right now I'm on a residential sidewalk. I got the corner in front of me and it's a curb, so there's actually maybe 4 or 5 inches between the top of the curb and the street. So there's several different ways to locate corners. Another way is to use cars as a sound source, but right now this is a very quiet residential area, so there's no cars coming. So my main way is going to be using the cane to feel the drop off of the curb. And to do that, if you're using 2-point touch, you're going to want to switch to either touch and slide cane technique or constant contact. So for this demonstration, I'm going to use constant contact and show you what it looks like when the cane tip drops off the edge of the curb. So I'm doing constant contact, walking along the sidewalk, coming up to the corner, and I just felt my cane tip drop off the edge. So there's a good 4 or 5 inches between the top of the curb and the street. So it's pretty obvious if you're walking straight along the sidewalk and you come to one of these curbs right in front of you, it's most likely a street corner. So for my second corner demonstration, I want to demonstrate what it looks like locating a corner on a blended corner that blends into the street. So in front of me here, I am along still again a residential sidewalk, and in front of me is a corner that blends into the street. And there's a few different cues I can use to help me locate this corner. One is the sound of traffic, but right now there's not much traffic going on, so it's quiet, so I wouldn't recommend using that at this point. Another way is to use the down slope of the corner. So corners that are blended into the street tend to slope down, and you're able to feel that through your feet. So the proprioception through the feet, you can feel the tilt of the ground towards the street. So that can be an indicator that you're coming up to a corner. And another cue I can use here is at the end of where it blends in the street, there is a curb that is flush with the corner and the street, but it has a little bit of a tactile difference underneath my cane tip. So when I'm traveling, I can use my cane tip and feel the slope down, as well as the blending into the street and the little curb, which has kind of a tiny little lip. But if I'm looking for it or paying attention for it, I can hopefully find that. So let's try that. So I'm doing constant contact again, and I'm walking towards the corner. I feel the slope down with my feet. My cane is going down, and I could feel a little bit the difference between the curb and the street and the sidewalk. So that's one way of knowing you have located a corner. And here's another quick example of a blended corner. This one, unlike the last one, has a little less of that curb between the blending of the sidewalk and the street to tell that it's a corner. But this one does have some slope down, so I can use that. And it also has a change in texture in that the sidewalk here at the corner is concrete, but the street is asphalt. So that could be another way of detecting that you are coming up to or at a corner. So I'm going to walk here with constant contact. So I can feel the slope down. I feel some dirt here in between, and then I can feel the street. And I can feel the different texture through my cane. So that's another way of helping with blended corners and locating them. But blended corners tend to be one of the harder ones to find for most people. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And for the final corner that I want to talk about for this video is blended corners with tactile warning strips or bumps. There's a lot of different names for them, but in front of me here I have a corner, and the corner there's a rectangle, brownish copper looking color with these bump dots on it. And that is another way of knowing that you arrived at a corner, if your cane is able to find those bumps. So that is another way of locating this corner here. But the rectangle doesn't take up the whole corner, so it can be missed and you can bypass that. So relying solely on that, I probably wouldn't recommend at most corners. But along this corner here, there's definitely more traffic than the previous corners, so that can be a good indicator. And another few things I want to point out that can be cues that you come up to a corner is you can also, or sometimes, feel the change in the wind when you walk past buildings. So especially in kind of a city downtown area, when you walk past a building or there becomes an opening at a corner, you can feel the change in pressure or the wind. Another cue is if you do a same route a lot of the same time, or you're used to doing the same route, you get used to the time distance. So you realize that you're maybe halfway through the block because you've done it so many times, and that you're not quite yet at the corner. So that can be another factor for helping you find or locate corners. So there's a lot of different factors involved, and it really depends on the corner because all these corners are so unique. So it's definitely recommend, meeting with a specialist who can help determine what cues would be the best for figuring out if you arrived at a corner. So these are just some of the cues that can be helpful when locating or knowing that you arrived at a corner. And these cues that I shared with you are really for somebody who is traveling non-visually. If somebody has some functional vision, they might use some other cues to help, such as crosswalk lines or the contrast between the color of the cement sidewalk and the darker asphalt street. But what I'm sharing with you today is really just geared for someone who is traveling non-visually. If somebody has some functional vision, they can definitely combine a few of the cues from non-visual travel as well as using some of their functional vision to locate corners. So I hope this video was a good review on how to locate different types of street corners. Again, there are so many different types of corners out there that the way to really develop this skill is just practice and get used to experiencing different types of corners and how you can tell that those are actual corners. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you're feeling up for it, please subscribe to my channel here. And if you click that little bell, you'll be alerted when a new video becomes available. And thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.